Silver just hit 88.16, smashing all-time highs. But don't be fooled, this isn't about electric vehicles or solar panels. It's not even about industrial demand. What's really driving this surge is something much bigger, and if you don't understand it right now, it could completely change how you think about protecting your wealth in the next few weeks. You might think you know the story, but I'm about to reveal a hidden truth that most investors are completely missing. And if you're not paying attention, you could get left behind. So what's really going on? The surge in silver isn't just a random spike. It's tied to a massive financial shock that's coming. It all centers around a Supreme Court case that could force the U.S. Treasury to hand out over $200 billion in refunds, money it doesn't have. That's right, $200 billion. And when this decision drops, it's not just a news story, it's a ticking time bomb for anyone holding dollars or dollar-based assets. But here's the real question. How will the government pay for it? And what does that mean for you? Stick around, because the answer is not what the mainstream media is telling you. Here's where things get real. The legal challenge at the heart of all this is about tariffs from the Trump era, tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of imports. The argument? These tariffs were imposed without Congress's approval, violating the Constitution. But here's the kicker. If the Supreme Court rules these tariffs unconstitutional, it won't just stop future tariffs. They'll be forced to refund every cent that was paid retroactively. That's hundreds of millions, maybe billions, owed to businesses. And under U.S. law, when the government collects money illegally, they have to pay it back with interest. That's a $200 billion obligation. And trust me, that's not just pocket change. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. A $200 billion refund isn't just a check the Treasury can write and forget about. This is a fiscal shock, an unexpected demand for cash that could shake the very foundations of U.S. finances. When this decision drops, the Treasury doesn't have $200 billion lying around. They'll have to borrow it. And the bond market? It's already under stress. In fact, just the idea of the government needing to raise this kind of money will push yields up, and if yields spike, the cost of borrowing skyrockets. It's a dangerous cycle, one that pushes more debt onto the already massive pile the U.S. owes. The system is already teetering, and this is the kind of event that could tip it over the edge. Here's the real kicker. When the Treasury needs to borrow $200 billion in a hurry, there are only two possible outcomes. Either they find buyers for their bonds at the current interest rates, or they have to raise those rates to attract buyers. In a normal market, that wouldn't be a huge problem, but we're not in a normal market. Yields are already climbing, and foreign buyers are pulling back from U.S. debt. If the Treasury pushes this much debt into the market, one of two things will happen. Bond yields will skyrocket, or the Federal Reserve will step in and print the money to buy the bonds. Either way, the dollar's value takes a hit. This is what we call a fiscal flight to quality. Smart money knows this is coming, and they're already positioning themselves. So why is silver suddenly surging? It's not a coincidence. It's the early warning signal. Now let's stack a few facts. First, silver is up 4.45% in just a few hours. That's not normal. Industrial demand doesn't cause prices to jump like that overnight. Second, there's a massive price gap between New York and Shanghai. Silver is priced at $88.16 in New York, but a $98 price is being quoted in Shanghai. That's an 11% premium. And it's not just a fluke. This is a sign of something bigger. When markets are under stress, gaps like this don't happen. Why? Because it's telling us physical silver is being pulled out of Western vaults and sent to the East. Traders are capitalizing on this gap, and the metal is disappearing fast. Now, think about this. What happens when there's no metal left at these prices? When the market realizes there's no more supply at the paper price, that's when we're in dangerous territory. This isn't just about numbers on a screen. This is about real people, real families, and your financial future. Think about what happens when the dollar loses its credibility. It's not just a drop in value, it's an erosion of confidence. When the government can't manage its debt without printing money or raising taxes, it affects everyone holding dollars. People like you who've worked hard to build up savings could see their purchasing power vanish. This isn't just an abstract economic theory. This is happening right now. The smart money is already moving into assets that can't be devalued by policy decisions, gold, silver, and other hard assets. If this situation continues, you could be left holding the bag. If this sounds familiar, let me know in the comments. You're not alone in this. Now let's take a step back and understand the bigger picture. This isn't just about silver or gold. It's about how systems work when they're under pressure. When governments face massive unexpected debt obligations like this $200 billion, they have three options: cut spending, raise taxes, or borrow more. Cutting spending? Politically impossible. Raising taxes? No one wants that. So they turn to the bond market, but here's the problem. The market's already stressed. Central banks are reducing their holdings of U.S. debt, and bond yields are rising. In simple terms, when the government issues more debt, the value of the dollar falls. And that's why silver and gold are rising. Investors don't trust the dollar when it's being devalued. They trust hard assets that can't be printed. The system is rigged to fail under these conditions. And that's why you need to pay attention to what's happening now. So what happens next? We're at a crossroads. There are two possible paths ahead. First, the Supreme Court rules, and the government scrambles to find a way to pay the $200 billion. If bond yields spike and the Fed prints money, you'll see the dollar's value erode quickly. Silver and gold will continue to rise, and the fiscal shock will become undeniable. But there's a second path. One where the Supreme Court rules, but the government manages to delay or put off the decision. If that happens, we could see a short-term pullback in the silver market. The bond market might stabilize for a while, but don't be fooled. It's only a temporary fix. No matter what happens, the writing is on the wall. And if you're paying attention, you can see the next move forming already. Here's the bottom line. The mainstream narrative wants you to believe silver is rising because of industrial demand, solar panels, electric cars, the green energy transition. Sure, that's part of it. But the bigger story, the one no one's talking about, is the looming fiscal crisis that's coming. Governments are borrowing more than they can pay back, and when confidence in the currency starts to crack, hard assets like silver become more than just investments. They become insurance. The $200 billion shock could happen any day, and when it does, it's going to change everything. But here's the thing. You don't have to wait for the crisis to hit. You can position yourself now, follow the indicators, build your plan, and stay ahead of the curve. If you want to stay on top of these changes, make sure to subscribe for more analysis. And if you want to understand what happens when a government tries to print its way out of a crisis, check out my deep dive on the silver move of the 1920s, links in the description. Stay sharp and watch the indicators. The next 48 hours could decide everything.